Welcome to Measurably Better Learning, the podcast built for learning and development professionals. Whether you're an instructional designer, L&D professional, or corporate leader, get ready for insights and ideas that will transform your approach to learning, training, and development. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Measurably Better Learning podcast. And today I get to have another conversation with my good friend Miriam Taylor. And today, Miriam, we're going to talk about having a creative eye. And you and I have worked together well over a decade.
Yeah,
I think you recognize I have no creative eye of any kind.
I
Now,
disagree.
It is because you're a kind and decent person. But I'm fascinated by this. So we're doing this series of learning leader as, and then sort of fill in the blank for what that is. And we've had some interesting conversations. This one's a little tricky.
It is. This is a tricky one.
Because the learning leader as creative eye does not mean that, you are the art director.
Right. Definitely not. No.
And so, let's begin with the basics. What do you mean when you say a creative eye?
Yeah. I mean, some of it is even historical leading into this definition. So when I first came out of the classroom and went into instructional design, start to finish, I did it all. So I met with the client, gathered the notes, wrote the storyboard, then went over to the software, and, banged my head against the wall, figured it out, recorded all my own audio. It rendered overnight most of the time.
The good old days.
For a little computer, given all the
out of it.
Yep. And, there were sort of, as I went further along, there were some preset slides and templates, and you're always excited when that new version of software came out because there was some better looking stuff.
Yeah.
But what we, as you and I worked together over time, of course, is we realized an increasing level of sophistication.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people with those skill sets and those natural gifts and abilities.
Yeah.
And so to us, it became clear pretty quickly. And in many companies still, though, an instructional designer has to do it all. But if possible, the idea is to sort of split those two so that we have people that actually have what we'd call a creative eye. And we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, the creative eye. Let's talk about, because you said there are people that have those skills and abilities. What are those skills and abilities? What do they look like to you? It doesn't have to be a formal definition, but it. You're working with somebody that has it.
Yeah.
And when you're working with somebody that doesn't.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm one of those people that can look at something and be like, ooh, that's bad. But I can't tell you always how to fix it. So some of it is formal training. So we hired graphic designers who had formal training, right? Spacing, colors, layout, design concepts. But we hired, artists, people who had a degree in fine art, a degree in sculpture, because they spent a large part of their life looking at lines and color and design and aesthetics, all of that. Right. So I'm not giving you a very good answer, but formal training is some of it. Yeah. But then, there's just, and we can talk more later about how to upskill yourself, but there are people that have that ability to do that higher level work. And typically it's natural gifts and abilities, combined with formal training. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I've been in those conversations where that line is too thick or it should be a different hue of blue. And in my head, I'm going, come on, that's not going to make any difference. Then I see when the change is made and I'm like, oh, wow. Right. Yeah, I never would have caught that was off, but they just see it. So let's talk about upskilling. So, if you are a leader in a learning organization, you do need to have some of that, because often you might be the last.
Yeah, the last review.
Yeah, you might be the final thumbs up. How do you upskill?
Yeah, and I do want to clarify that I don't necessarily think the learning leader has to have the creative eye, so to speak, if that's what we're calling it. Yeah. But they have to understand that it's very important.
Yeah.
Like the world, gone is the day of, well, I did the best I could and I used a PowerPoint template. Nope. Our learners have much higher expectations, our companies or organizations do. So I think some things I did, for example, I studied design principles. There's a book by Kath Caldwell called Graphic Design for Everyone. It's very visual. It doesn't.
Is that nicer than for dummies?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's right. It's like a picture book because it's about picture, right? So pictures, I can thumb through it. It was helpful to learn visual literacy. So I think like looking at font and color and what does that say to me and how does that affect people differently? And then honestly, the simplest one is really to analyze high quality design. So we have a colleague, and you as I go on will recognize her, but she came into work pretty new into this position and was like, I just spent the whole weekend analyzing all these commercials on TV and the way that they did this and this. And I'm like, I'm kind of embarrassed.
You need a hobby.
Well, yes, I guess because I fast forward through them, but I was like, I never thought of that. But I do spend now, whether it's print, like magazine, Architectural Digest. Like, honestly, I love that magazine. I don't
Really
pay for it, but I look at it in doctor's offices to, blogs.
Well, now I know what to get you for Christmas.
Yes, thank you. Images of homes I could never afford.
Right.
Anyway,
Sure.
those kinds of things, just being intentional.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we have time to take more classes or to do, but being intentional about what I'm looking at or, in that whole world gives me, as a learning leader, the ability to look at something and say, that is not going to work for this client.
Yeah.
But that is.
Yeah. And part of that is knowing the client.
It's also knowing the client.
Yeah. And their style guides and so on.
That.
Yeah. And there are, we work with some companies that are a little more software-y, right?
Yeah.
More creative. Let's be cool. We don't want to be cool. Other companies, like the last thing we want.
Financial services.
We do not want to be cool. We want to be right. Yeah. So when we come back, Miriam, we're going to talk a little bit about how to upskill not just yourself, but more importantly, your team, and maybe bringing in the right people and upskilling the people you have. So we'll be right back.
Imagine a world where every training session, every learning module, and every translated document is aligned with your company's unique goals and global ambitions. Welcome to Ingenuity, where we don't just talk about elevating your corporate learning, we make it happen. At Ingenuity, we understand the heart of your business is its people. That's why we specialize in creating custom learning solutions and translation services that are not just effective, but are designed specifically for your business's global needs. Let us show you how learning cannot be just better, but measurably better, with solutions tailored just for you. Learn more in the description below.
All right, welcome back, Miriam. This is an interesting conversation in an area where I have much to learn. The obvious question is, the first part we were talking a little bit about how do you build your own capacity, but now how do you build that capacity either through bringing in a new team member or in the existing team members that you have, which now you're training your training team. What are some techniques and ways of doing that?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing is I would say take a good hard look at your team. Chances are you have people who have those, they might not be off the charts, but they're a notch or two above other people in those areas. And then we have some people that write these most amazing storyboards, but you really don't want to let them loose on any kind of design idea. And then you have these people that are good at design and they prefer that side of instructional design. So have them schedule some informal lunch and learn, or, take your person who needs to be upskilled, say, hey, why don't you slide over? Ask them how they did that, why they did it, why they made those choices. And if you have budget, of course, the best way to do it is, put them through some workshops or some conferences, that kind of thing. So everybody's sort of on the same page, but
it's really good to hear. That's one of the art to me, any art, music is the same way. The music or art or whatever, any visual art, to me is less interesting than hearing why the artist made the choices she made, right, or did what he did. That let me in your head a little bit so I understand. Yeah, so I like that lunch and learn. Here's what I was thinking. Here's what I tried. Here's what I didn't like. Here's where I ended up.
And that's really what upskilling is. Otherwise, I'm just taking your work and fixing it and sending it back, and you have no idea why.
Right.
So that's what and then the other thing I would say is, so like if you do need to hire, think outside the box. I mean, what we discovered is that you can teach people how to use software. But again, some of those innate gifts and abilities, like I alluded to, I mean, we've hired somebody who's a fine art major with an advertising minor. So they still were thinking in that advertising mode, but we hired somebody that primarily did sculpture.
Right.
We still hire traditional, like maybe animators but
Yeah, those people were awesome.
they were amazing, and you can teach them the software.
Right.
But you can't always teach those innate abilities. And then I would even say, if hiring isn't in your budget, something we've often done is we've looked to outsource to a vendor to create, hey, can you create 4 or 5 different templates that we can mix and match, but we start with this very high-end look.
Right.
And if you have a good relationship with that vendor, hey, can you come in for half a day or jump on a call and do the same thing again, help upskill my team.
Right.
But you don't always have to hire someone. Develop a pool of resources, and your team is going to, gradually learn how to start to build those things.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent idea. Well, AI has to come in this conversation because it has to come in every conversation. I want you to know that in the last few months, I've been messing around and created a lot of AI images, and it is absolutely astounding.
Yeah, it's crazy,
and it's kind of fun. So, where does that play here?
Yeah, I mean, there's some amazing AI tools that will get us design concepts, that will get us characters and personas, that will get us different voices and stories, and which is amazing. What I think you're still sort of in that same position at the end of the day, though, of like, that's not quite right, but I don't know why. Even with AI. Now, sometimes I can put my finger on it with AI. It doesn't sound right, or it's too robotic, whatever it might be. But there's still, whether I'm using AI or not, I mean, the value, I guess I should say, of AI is that it can get me a good portion of the way there. And then that frees up my team, those people with those gifts and abilities, to tweak it just a little bit. Or for someone on my team who doesn't really have that gift and ability, okay, well, let's get you something AI created. Now, if you can work with it from here, we're good to go.
Yeah.
But you still have somebody on your team has to have the knowledge and the skills to know why that's not working or why it is working.
Yeah. AI, I've been playing around with it, like create an image for me of Emperor Constantine in 313 on the Mulvian Bridge. Right? And it's just
You did. That was the first thing that came to mind.
well, I'm sure everybody did, right? It's silly as to why that matters to me. But anyway, but to actually see it. Now, again, that somebody with that creative eye would look at it and say, okay, let's change some prompts, or that gives me the inspiration to
do this.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
well, good. Well, again, Miriam, I have learned much from you, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Before we wrap up the show, if you're looking to dive deeper, we've got tons of free downloads, L&D resources, and details about upcoming webinars that you won't want to miss. They're found in the episode description. Plus, if you ever want to chat with either one of us, now's your chance. You can find links in the episode description to connect directly with Miriam or me. We're here to answer your questions and to discuss all things learning and development. And speaking of questions, we love hearing from you. Whether it's a question or a comment or a topic you're curious about, or if you just want to join the conversation, drop us a comment on your favorite social media channel. Your input shapes our shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. It's the best way to ensure you never miss out on our latest episode. We're excited to continue to transform learning into a measurable success with you. Until next time.